Hey everybody, this is Bob Bakert with Jazz Guitar. Today we're being joined by I don't know how to even I don't even know where to even go.
We don't remember my name.
Oh, of course I remember your name. I'm coming up with a descriptor. We're being joined by
Oh, okay.
Andy Summers. I saw something this morning that I thought was appropriate. Yes, Andy, I do remember your name.
Mm.
Renaissance man. The
Oh,
quintessential example of a Renaissance man. A Renaissance man is a well-rounded individual, gifted and skilled in many different areas. Sir, I think you are definitely a Renaissance man in that
oh,
definition.
very kind. Well, I got something to live up to this morning.
You
Yeah.
certainly do.
Yeah.
The reason I'm going there is, you're for people who don't know, you're an author. You're obviously a photographer. We're going to talk about that quite a bit.
Mhm.
You're world famous for being a musician. Probably, that's probably how most people know you. I just find you completely fascinating. I really do. I think you're just, obviously the music speaks for itself, but you're just totally involved with all the other ways of expressing yourself in an artful way.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm definitely driven. It's what keeps me going is to be doing, for want of better terms, something creative project. And I sort of spread my wings since the early days over into other things like writing and also photography, which I've pursued fairly intensely over the years.
Well, that's kind of why we're here today. People want to learn about Andy Summers. There's no shortage of information out there on the web. I mean, all of your history is there, whether it
Yeah.
be musical history, and some nice, some books that you've written on the subject and all that. So what we really want to talk about is today. What are you doing today? And I think the thing that's jumping out at me is the Harmonics of the Night project, which you're going to be touring in Europe starting in September 28th. Let's talk about this project if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've done it before, and in fact, I did it 3 weeks ago again in Germany at Leica headquarters in Wetzlar, Germany, which is just outside of Frankfurt. This is something I started doing about, well, just pre-pandemic. I was doing it, and I managed to pull off about 10 shows, and then we all got struck down. Essentially, what it is that after all these many years, doing photography and being a guitarist, I finally brought the two things together. So essentially, I play on stage alone, obviously with all my various devices, to a big cinema size screen with various sequences of photography put together. Some with backing tracks, like say from Harmonics of the Night, and some other stuff, and some solo guitar. So it's a kind of a mix, but yeah, I'm just about to go out and take it to Europe again, unless something terrible happens in between now and the weekend. But I just don't know. I mean, we're all sort of hanging by our fingernails. I mean, there could be a call this morning saying, you know what, it's too dodgy. So that's not me. That's the world.
Mhm.
But we worked very hard over the summer. I did. It's interesting. I did the one show at Leica, sort of dropped in the deep end with no chance to kind of warm up with a couple of other gigs somewhere, and then but doing that one show did a lot of things came to mind. So yeah, we've been working on it for a few weeks now. We're virtually through with it and ready to take off and have a go at various cities all over. Well, it's actually all over Europe, everywhere.
Yeah,
But we'll see what happens. Yeah.
there are 11 dates between September
Yeah, there were
28th.
more, but I think a couple of promoters got cold feet, because
Mhm.
it's a very difficult time to sell tickets. And, I went to hear again today about what's happening. Well, that's the world, not me.
Right.
But everything is booked, ready to go. But I'm looking forward to it, but I'm slightly apprehensive because of the times we're in, filling theaters and everything going okay. And then suddenly there's no gas or oil in Europe. You
Oh,
can't kind of
jeez.
trying to play. I don't know, it's sort of a little bit pretty
Well,
crazy.
you're going to be
Yeah.
in, Paris, Rotterdam, Copenhagen, Berlin, Hamburg,
Yeah.
Geneva. I mean, you're going to be all over Europe, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it sounds like I don't know, it just sounds like a great time. I got to tell you, you're jumping right into the deep end, especially if you did your first show at Leica. That's kind of like going straight to Broadway without any.
Well, that was kind of a bit in the deep end, because, like certainly for me, Leica headquartered, it's the deep heart of photography,
Oh
and
yeah.
has an incredible history of photography since, they started in about 1910 in Wetzlar, Germany, and they're still there. The place, well, they call it Lights Park, is beautiful. There's a beautiful museum, the original factory, hotel. I mean, it's a really fantastic setup. So, not that I was daunted particularly, because I'm on stage with a guitar and a lot of sound, but yeah, it's sort of throwing yourself in the deep end. It would have been nice to have had a few practice dates first, but it all went really well. So everyone's happy, and I'm doing more with them, quite a lot more actually. So it's a definite involvement. More galleries, and I might maybe do something in Japan that can be interesting, I think.
There's a
Yeah.
rich photography history in Japan, obviously, with Nikon.
Obviously, yeah,
Yeah,
great.
they're
And
real
I know the galleries there, so a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let me ask you a question just about the art itself. Does the music inform the photography, or the photography inform the music, or
yeah, I think that's a very good way of putting it. And I have naturally, over the years and doing interviews and sort of having these sort of twin things going on in my life, I do talk about that, because I think, like, well, you either have an eye talent or you don't.
right?
I started doing photography. I think when I first one I got I think it was a Nikon. It was September 1979 in New York. That's where it started. As a sort of way to alleviate the boredom of being in hotels every single night for months on end. So I got a camera, but it took. It didn't. I didn't get fed up with it after 10 days. I kept going, and of course, it developed into a lifelong passion, which I've had great satisfaction and joy from. I felt that as I got into it, that I was lucky to have come from another discipline, like playing the guitar, being a musician, where I've been forced into all sorts of situations where I had to improvise and create and recognize things in music, whichever way you want to look at it, lyrical lines, melodic lines, shapes, chords, sound, that my brain was already sort of attuned to trying to think outside of the box, to use that cliche. And I think gradually in photography, as it sort of freed up for me and I understood it better technically, I think some of those things really from music really came into the photography. And anyway, I mean, I suppose the old cliche that I always like to quote is all art aspires to the condition of music. So I think in there somewhere with photography, whatever level it was on, I was looking for the condition of music in a photograph. And I suppose you can reverse the terms and apply all that to music as well. You can think, if you're composing, in your studio with multi-tracks, you can sort of start to think cinematically.
The interesting thing is that your approach to music, your approach to the guitar, this is my take on it anyway. It's profound eclecticism. I mean, you started playing jazz kind of right out of the get-go.
As
I
a
know.
kid, that was the
Yeah,
influence.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Wes Montgomery.
Well, Jimmy Rainey, Grant Green, Kenny Burrell,
Yeah, all those guys.
Sonny Rollins, Miles Davis. These were my influences when I was 15, 16 years old.
So many guys that I talked to started out being influenced by rock players, and that's where they came from, and they morphed into jazz as they went on. Whereas
Yeah.
there's a couple of guys out there that started with jazz, but they never really went on to rock. They kind of stuck with jazz. But you started with jazz, playing with Wes, Kenny, and all
Well,
those
pretty
guys.
much, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all sort of the same in a way. You get a guitar when you're 11 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
And, someone who was popular back in England in those days was Cliff Richard and the Shadows.
Right,
And
right.
they had a guitarist called Hank Marvin.
Mm-hmm.
And, so they were very popular. And I haven't, obviously my musical and guitar consciousness hadn't developed that far then. And so the first thing you learn to do is play Apache or a couple of sort of Hanks things. But, I guess my natural musical ear started to go on once you got the first few chords around the first position. you start hearing these other weird notes, and then hello, you're waking up to the jazz world, and that's where it went for me. Obviously, by the time I was 15, I could play all of West Coast blues. Wes's solo, I learned it, by ear. I could actually play the whole thing. I try and play along with it, trying to keep up with Wes, even at that very young age. But yeah, my ear went to more advanced harmonic music. No question about it. It was very natural for me, and yeah.
And you also studied classical guitar.
Well, later I did. I used to play at that age with a kid who he'd come over, he'd bring his classical guitar. I can't imagine what we managed to play together. But as time went on, I took some time out and I went to college in LA, and I became an absolute classical guitar fanatic.
So where I'm going with this is you spent a bunch of time in the jazz world. You spent a bunch of time in the classic world.
Yeah.
You've spent a bunch of time playing all these different genres that you've mastered. Well, mastered as much as anybody masters anything. When it comes to music, and there's only 12 notes. And and
no, I know the 13th one actually.
Yeah, no, you got that one. the Andy note. I like that.
Yeah, right.
There's only 12 notes, and you can arrange them in a whole lot of different ways. And at least in Western music, and yet your compositions to express yourself, sonically with your graphic, if you will, your photography, is informed by your deep knowledge of jazz and classical and rock, and having been the guitar player in the power trio of that decade.
Yeah.
You're the guy. I mean, you owned it. You are it, and playing shit that nobody'd ever heard before out of a rock player.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was informed by a lot of other things, as you say. I had a pretty broad palette.
Huge. I mean, the widest one I am aware of, to be honest with you. So where I'm going with this is, so the music that you composed and you play for this show is composed by a guy that's had all of those influences, and you decided that this is how I want to express myself. This is the palette that I'm drawing from to express myself. So people that are getting to go to these shows are really, really lucky people. That's the way. That's just the truth.
Yeah, well, it goes well. I mean, the show goes down a storm. Actually, I think they don't know quite what to expect, but it's an age-old thing. They're looking at a screen with all sorts of exotic imagery across their, cortex, and I'm playing some pretty out there stuff. But it's a huge sound, coming through the hall, and I've worked out all my pedals and everything, and I've got some really beautiful sound. So it's pretty spacey, and we go through a whole thing with it, and it goes well. It's not so out that people can't enjoy it. I mean, I don't like to subject them to a totally avant-garde atonal hour and a half. With some melodicist. I don't even want to do that. I throw some pretty spicy stuff in there, but it's melodic as well.
Oh, so, no, it's very accessible music. I listen to a whole lot of it. What you have, on YouTube, and what you have available for people to listen to. I listen to a whole lot of it. What strikes me is your imagery, your photography, if you will, is as thought-provoking as your music is. I mean, some of these images, or a lot of that I'm looking at, I'm just thinking, well, the eye of the guy that composed that music is what comes to mind to me.
Yeah, I don't think you can say, oh, well, you photograph, you're doing like sort of, let's say, just to be extreme, avant-garde, cutting-edge music, and then in photography, you photograph kittens and puppies.
Exactly.
I'd like to think that the photography is the visual equivalent of the music I'm interested in making. They're not on different planets at all.
No, it's one is your expression of your emotions visually, and the other one is your expression of your emotions sonically, and it's I don't know.
There's a reason why it's sort of satisfying to do this, to kind of finally, I don't know what took me so long to get around to it, but to show the link, if you you like between the two, and that one, here's the photographic side of the music, and here's the sonic side of the photographs. Whichever way, at least I feel like that's in there, and yeah, that's what I'm doing. And it's great fun, actually.
So I'm going to ask you a question. The dream project. What would you do if you had access to anybody and everybody, and access to whatever recording facilities that you wanted, whether they be remote or all over the world, and as many musicians? What would be your ultimate self-expression?
Well, yeah, that's a very difficult question. I mean, there's so many things that, lurk in the back of your mind that I'd like to do, like probably most players that, I've thought about doing a sort of orchestral project, different ways. One, and I did meet with somebody not so long ago, either I could take a lot of my compositions and orchestrate them, or write a complete new, set of pieces or whatever, to an hour's worth of orchestra with electric guitar. Yeah, the ones like, when you talk about things like that, I don't know if there is an ultimate, but sort of three big ones I'd sort of like to knock off before give
well, that's where we're going here. It's
I'm not finished yet, but I would do the orchestral one, and I know people who can help me do that. The last 2 or 3 years have been so bizarre that it's sort of knocked a lot of those things out of the water. I'll do the orchestral. I'd like to do something with a string quartet, and also maybe a guitar quartet, and there's something looming at the moment in that sense. Yeah, they're different, of course I can keep making records. I mean, I might go back in the studio at the end of November and just try and make a trio record, but I want to go a slightly different way than I did with the last 3 records that lead up to Harmonics of the Night. I'll take a different approach. So, because essentially those records, I made everything myself. But I'd like to get back with a great double bass player and drummer, and make the next record like surf guitar with jazz overtones. I'm thinking about it.
With a double bass.
Yeah, definitely double bass. I always think I prefer that. Generally, I play with electric bass players, which is great too. But I'd like to do one with double bass. Yeah.
And would you play your Stratocaster on that?
Well, sometimes with things like that, it depends on the track. Sometimes I have different attitudes about it. I could play the Strat on it. I sort of go between. I have more than one guitar, as you might know. The Strat or 336. A little Gibson that I use, which is a sort of mini version of the 335. Very nice. I've got a Collings 335.
Love that. Nice. Love that guitar.
Yeah. I kind of mess around with them a bit and see what the setup's all. It's actually, I think, nice to play one guitar all the way through, and you get kind of an evenness to it. I don't, not go all over the place. So every track's got a different sounding guitar. Depends what you want to do. I mean, I think you have to, get the guitar that serves the material, really.
Right. But you wouldn't be playing an archtop, I think that's my point.
I tend not to. I mean, I've got them, of course. I've got several, actually. I've got a Benedetto. I got some. I've got a stack of them. Not playing those so much, but I've got a Sadowski guitar. That's a very good jazz guitar. The slimline, beautiful. Yeah. Well, I know Benedetto, of course, and he made the Andy Summers guitar, back a few years ago, and I've got that, of course. I've got the very expensive Benedetto, and I've got the one that he made for me. What else?
Well, there is a reality to this, and that is that you are Andy Summers, and that is a big deal. That is a big deal. It really
it helps. Yeah, I mean, I don't have to twist people's arm to get them to do stuff. Usually, I'm very pleased with my. I guess we call it the Monocaster that Fender made about 3 years ago. That was a long story to get that done, but it's absolutely unique as a guitar. I've got Martin, of course, the Andy Summers Martin, which I had great fun making with Dick Boak. Wonderful experience. And what have I got? Signature guitars, Martin, Fender, and I've got the Gibson, my 335 Gibson, which was, they didn't really go anywhere new with it, but they did make one, a pink coloured, rose coloured 335 a few years back.
And your
I'm thinking
original,
about it actually. This is weird, probably because I can do it. I'm getting this sort of itch to make another guitar with my name on it, but I've got a slightly different idea this time. I worked recently with a really interesting artist, just very specific, very sort of idiosyncratic paintings. And I'd like to do maybe a Strat with her paintings all over the guitar. I think it would be, a sort of limited edition collector's item. I had to talk to Fender about that, see if we could get that done. It would be very attractive and different, So, those are not my main preoccupation in life, but as you sort of did all along, doing things, these things sort of arrive. I got the Monocaster made, and I got the Leica camera that goes with it, which has got the same thing as photographs on the body of the camera, which is pretty wild. So these things can be quite a lot of work to get done, but they're sort of satisfying, and you feel good that you did it. I don't mind putting the time in on things like that. They're artistic.
Well, what's interesting is that, I mean, this is something I've found as I don't know if it's irony or whatever it is, but your original telly that you played all throughout the police years.
Yeah.
I think you played it on everything. Did you buy it for 80 pounds or 200 pounds?
I think it was $200.
$200. Okay.
Yeah.
$200. And your last Leica camera cost how much?
I think actually, my last two Leica cameras were given to me by Leica. They don't give out much, but they did give me the M10 and the M10R, which is the color version.
Right.
And I absolutely love them. For me, they've gone on to an M11. Why, I don't know, because to me, the M10, I thought, well, you might as well sell the company now. You've done it. We got the perfect camera. The M10 is great. So, I do have the Q2 as well, which is a different kind of thing. But no, I love to shoot with a Leica camera. And, I have a total routine, my way of doing it, which is the two Leicas, and, I have about 5 lenses that I carry. I'm very, very used to it, and I know exactly what I'm doing when I use those cameras.
Oh, that's so evident in the images. I mean, I'm looking at, the things that you have exposed and put on the internet, and I'm going, geez, this is just, it's just beautiful work. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be a photographer, but the use of light and shadow and all of that.
It's a wonderful medium, and the one that you can be completely engrossed in. And all these years later, I'm still completely engrossed in it, and interested. And I'm interested in going out there and hitting it and going. When I think about traveling abroad, I start immediately thinking about photography. What I'm going to do.
Is there any place or person or thing that you would like to take images of that you haven't gotten to yet, or is there a holy grail situation that you want to get yourself into with your camera?
I mean, because if there's somewhere on the planet like that, I can go there. It's all right. I mean, I've been everywhere. I've been to Tibet. I've been all over China. I went over China 8 times. I've got a huge amount of photography from there. Certain places can be great to shoot in. Places like Italy, because of the architecture, which is always a great subject. Places like that, really. I'm not actually going to Italy on this next trip, but I am going to go to Spain. Obviously, you can get out in some of these places, and the stuff that you can find is pretty powerful. It's literally all you have to do is press the button. I don't know. I have enjoyed for many years, being around in the world, Japan, China, all these different places I've been to, and just kind of wandering around. I like getting out there with a camera, and then I start walking and seeing what happens. I find it very exciting. That has never worn off for me. I've managed to, sustain that interest. So
where do you think that came from with you?
I don't really know, because I bought a camera like everybody buys a camera, but somehow clicks with me. One thing that I do think that maybe there's a seed here was when I was, 14, 15, 16, I used to go and see all these European art house movies, Truffaut, Godard, Fellini, Bergman, so on and so forth. There was a place in my hometown called the Continental Cinema, and they used to show all these kind of movies all the time as they were being made in those days. And often, well, probably 90% of the time, they were in black and white. And I think, I sort of lusted for it, and I thought I wanted to be a film director by the time I was about 17. But of course, I was a completely fanatical guitar player, and so that's the way it went. But I think later, early days of the Police, that emotion, if you like, that feeling inside of me started to resurrect itself when I got the camera and I started to shoot. And I think that those feelings, those sensations came back to me. So in a way, I think it was planted at a sort of fairly youthful age, and it immersed with, doing still photography, it emerged. Of course, I was traveling all over the world with the Police, and what I did, amazingly now looking back on it, is that I photographed everything about the Police from the inside. So I have there's been a few books out about it, but I had an incredible opportunity because we were world famous, mob scenes every night, and there I was shooting it all on Nikon, just not thinking I'd ever do anything with it. In fact, I didn't. Once it all quieted down, and that was sort of it, I looked at the photographs and went, nah, I don't know about this. And I put them all away. And then someone came and looked at them and went, oh, these are amazing. You've got to. So then they all sort of revived for me. So, yeah.
You mentioned being messing, at a young age, thinking about being a film director. Have you ever thought of doing a DP thing, director of photography? Just
Well, I do. I mean, with my assistant, we make little films, and my son is a very good photographer. We've started to collaborate on a few things now. And what's marvelous these days is, compared to all the years ago when we all started out, that there's so much you can do. You can make your own videos, and you can, there's quite a few in this show of where I take still photographs, and I create a sequence, and then we layer them. We have one falling on top of another. We're moving across the screen. We're morphing. We're drifting. So the whole thing appears pretty much like a movie at the end. And I've got about 4 or 5 of them in the show. But, it's the sort of stuff years ago, you never thought you could do this yourself. But I am doing that really quite actively now. And it's a nice extension of the still photography, because we've got it up on a big screen and they're kind of moving, and it's fantastic to see these images this big.
You've been incredibly generous on YouTube, showing people a lot of there's a lot to see. I mean, I've spent the last couple of days, I've immersed myself in your work. And there's a lot to see. You've been incredibly generous with your work, with your content. It makes me go, gee, I wish I could get a plane ticket over, go check out a couple of those shows. When I see you, not someone like you, but you and what you've done with your energies, and it's very inspiring, and it's really here's a word for you. It's just freaking cool.
Well, I agree. But all this going on is not done because you're desperate to have a career. It's just like natural interest.
No, you used the word earlier, driven. You're just kind of like this. Wow, I want to go there. I want to do that. I want to see this.
Try this out so I can make something. I love making things. It's just
it's just really cool. Well, you've been really generous with us today. I just want to get back to one more question, if you don't mind, and that is, so double bass, solid body electric guitar, drums. And that combination just it is very, very cool, because of the difference in the way that those instruments approach the way they make tone, if you will. And I just can't wait to hear that. I think that
will probably almost certainly be the next project. I hope over the winter. Yeah, because of the last Harmonics of the Night came out about 3 years ago, and I don't know what's happened since. It's just like never got back in the studio doing other things. But
first of all, I want to say thank you. Not for doing this, but for of all the freaking guitar players in the world, and there are a lot of guitar players in the world.
Yeah.
There's not many that have put more signature, I don't want to call them licks, but more signature phrases together than you. I mean, you in popular music, the things that you composed for the Police songs, for example, they're in everybody's mind because they get played on the radio all over the world every day. And this is, I mean, that's
past 1 billion on.
That's an amazing. But those licks, those phrases, I call them what you like, those motifs, to get a little more, artsy about it. Does that ever like dawn on you that holy shit, I did that? It's like
no, it is amazing. I never really want to get used to it. I just I still want to remain sort of gobsmacked that all that happened, and here you are. But you can't rest on your laurels.
No.
The next thing,
Well, that was the next. That was part B to this, and that. A lot of guys, no names mentioned, but a lot of guys, that's what they do, though. They do rest on their laurels, and they, they go on. And I had a conversation with Steve Howe a couple months ago, and he's out there doing all kinds of stuff. And
Steve is great. I see. I read his interview on Guitar Player, and I think I watched it on your program here. But, because he's always been around about the same time as me, and I remember when he was in Tomorrow, and he was this guy in a rock band with a 175. I went, like, dude, what are you doing with that guitar? They make really thin ones now.
I said the same.
You got to hand it to him for he stuck to it.
I said the same thing to him in the interview. I said, "Well, dude, what are you doing?"
Well, ask me, does he pack it with something to stop it feeding back?
I don't think so.
Christ,
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's challenging. I mean, it's a great guitar, and I have a Steve Howe 175. I had other ones. I have two. I've had a few of them in my life. The first one I ever had when I was a kid was stolen. Killed me. I've got pictures of me with it. I was 17 years old. But I have a blonde 1958 175 that's a great guitar to play. And then a few years back, there's a local very nice guitar shop called True Tone, and I walked in. They had a Steve Howe 175 on the wall. I picked it up and said, "Okay, I'm taking this." They said that Gibson spent 10 years with Steve Howe to make that 175, and it was the sort of ultimate. It looks like the original, but there's stuff about it. So, I've got him. I'm into Steve and his playing.
Is there
He's
a question?
Unique one-off player. There's no one quite like Steve Howe.
Well, there's no one quite like Andy Summers either. So, so there you go. Is there a question that no one's ever asked you that you wish somebody would ask, or that's something that you'd like to address?
I can't think of the right answer to that.
No, you don't have to. It's you can no is an acceptable answer.
Well, I've done 5 billion interviews in my life, so I probably have been asked it.
Well, this is 5 billion and one. So we'll take it.
There you go. Yeah,
ring the bell. Well, listen, Andy. I'm a huge admirer, as so many people are, and I mean, there's nothing I can say you haven't heard a million people say before. I mean, you're truly you've given so much to the world, and I really mean that. I'm not just bullshitting you. You've given so much to the world, and it's we hear your music and we hear stuff that came out of your brain. We've been hearing it in our heads. It's part of the soundtrack of all of our lives. Yeah. And that's profound. I mean, that's very, very deep. And so thank you for that. Some great stuff. Thank you for coming out with me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Good to talk to you.
And this is Bob Bakert with Andy Summers with Jazz Guitar Today. Thanks again, Andy. Good luck to you. Good luck on your new tour.
Thank you. All right. Cheerio.
Bye now.